a lot of times you hear a lot of stuff, we are not alone, you are not alone. But the reality is you still going to feel alone. I'm a strong, and I don't know if this was the same for you. Like, you could tell me that all day. I felt so alone and devastated. I lost my sister, but more importantly, it's like, oh my God, like this is a incurable disease. So to that person who's newly diagnosed, I would definitely say like finding your tribe of people who will be able to support you in every sense of the word, because there are definitely cultural differences in the way you deal with cancer.
Hello, love. Welcome to the Sacred Purpose Podcast, a place where we illuminate your innate wisdom and help you embody your soul's calling. I'm your host, Lisa Malia, midwife, breast cancer survivor, and mama of 3, turned nonprofit CEO and embodiment coach. We're each on a unique path to live our sacred purpose, but we don't need to walk it alone. Through the power of connection, feminine wisdom, and embodied leadership, we can elevate our lives, communities, and businesses. Each week, I'll bring you transformative stories, practices, and rituals to support you in trusting and following your intuition, creating space to live a life of sacred purpose with deeper clarity and unapologetic joy. As we reimagine and envision a new way forward. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Today's episode is as powerful as it is tender. Before I sat down with LaTonya to interview her for this conversation, she had just received news of another breast cancer advocate in our community passing. She was another mentor and lifelong advocate, much like LaTonya and myself, and was a beacon for so many in the community. So her loss is definitely felt today and weighed on our hearts as we had this conversation and shared about the many women that we have lost on this path as survivors and lifelong advocates, and why it is that we continue to do this work and continue to share our stories. And we're re-inspired about not only the strength that it takes to continue to show up when our hearts are aching, but the importance of it and how we really do want to honor these women and have their stories be told. So LaTonya and I had met over our passion for advocacy work and our love of podcasting and female entrepreneurship. So she is the host of the Breast Talk Ever. So appropriately, we've titled this episode The Breast Talk Ever. And we talk about it all on this episode with a very tender and open heart. So I hope you dive in and really enjoy it and take these words to heart. LaTonya Davis is a 5-year triple negative breast cancer survivor who lost both her mother and her sister to metastatic triple negative breast cancer. As a former collegiate sprinter, LaTonya approached cancer as an opponent who was strong and intimidating, but beatable. A former marketer to Fortune 500 companies, she managed luxury wine and spirit portfolios, the willpower to win races, a love of storytelling, and an unerring creative eye prepared the root beer drinking foodie fashionista for her favorite brand management role to date. The first entrepreneurship meets cancer survivorship lifestyle company, the Breast Talk Ever. A proud NPR How I Built This Fellow, LaTonya is now using her marketing expertise and activism to address health disparities in underserved communities and to champion dope entrepreneurs who founded companies that were inspired by cancer. Grateful to be alive, LaTonya, now raising Jaden, her sister's only child, her NepSon, and resides in Miami Beach. Take a moment to visit the links in our show notes, learn more about LaTonya, learn more about the Breast Talk Ever, how you can support her work. There are links there also if you are a woman looking for more support and community. Sign up for our Warrioress retreatment programs there. If you are a supporter, learn more about my nonprofit organization For the Love of Cups. And if you have a moment to please leave a written review, let us know what you enjoyed about this conversation and about this podcast. We'd be so grateful. Hi, LaTonya. Welcome to Voices of Hope on the Sacred Purpose podcast. I am so grateful to have you here. I know you've been traveling. You might even be feeling a little bit under the weather. And so I'm super grateful for you taking your time to be here with me today. We've tried a couple times to connect. We've had some great conversations so far. And I'm so excited to dive in and see where this conversation leads, because every single one I've had with you up until this point has been so heartfelt, so real, full of wisdom and just true connection. So again, it's just an honor to have you here sharing your story and where you're at today, because you're one of these people who is just, you have so much life that you're living and so many aspects of what you do and how you show up in the world. And so I would just love to take a moment, let you check in, share with me where you're at and what your life looks like right now.
Well, first, I'd love to say thank you so much for having me on the show. Oh my gosh, like we tried to do this once right before I went to South by Southwest, which, oh my God, thanks to Expedia ruining my initial trip. But I always loved to take the time to sit with my survivor sisters because, I know like the amount of emotional energy as well as physical energy that goes into coordinating these things. And I'm just so grateful that you wanted to have me be a part of your series. So thank you first. Let me say that. And then as far as where I'm at, I'm super excited that we're, I guess, back outside. I say that with reservation because it's like, oh my God, I cannot believe it's been 2.5 years, I guess, and being in Austin, I just got back, as you referenced, from South by Southwest, which I've been doing for quite a few years now. And it was just amazing to be back amongst my marketing peers and, creators and just the energy in that city, especially after not being there since 2019. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 years. So I'm just really excited to now be able to be back in the presence of people IRL in real life, because for me, I'm a people person and, Zoom and everything is fine, but there's nothing like really extending your whole self and embracing another human and feeling the warmth, feeling their heartbeat and, just embracing each other. And I think while computer has been our best friend as it relates to maintaining context, there's just nothing like in real life interaction. So
yeah, absolutely. It just feels like it opens up more possibility.
Yes.
Just in real life, it's real. It's more tangible. Yeah. You can feel it. You can really believe that you can create, all these things that you've been dreaming about for the last 2 years again. And like you said, Zoom is wonderful. It's kept us connected. If it wasn't for Zoom, you and I wouldn't be here today. But right. Yeah, nothing quite like being in someone's energy and, like you said, being fully expressed and receiving that from other people as well. It's incredible. And you touched on something a moment ago, is just that creativity and being able to go and fill your cup and your energy that way is so important, especially with the work that you and I do, being lifetime advocates of breast cancer. I think you and I are both in this for the long haul, and it does, after some time, take a toll. It can take an emotional toll or a spiritual or physical toll on you. And we have to be so mindful of our bodies and our energy and taking care of ourselves so that we can keep showing up to do this work. So again, why I'm so appreciative of you being here. And we were talking before this episode, even how we feel like maybe we even need our own support group for these lifetime advocates of this work we do. But I think that's something that anybody in this work or in anything can really relate to, is that you've still got to really be able to take care of yourself so that you can show up and go out and do these things that fill your cup, to go and reinvigorate you and get your creativity going again, connect with your creative peers, get inspired, bring it back to the work that you're doing. which is really beautiful. I talked about it a little bit in your bio, but what you've done after your breast cancer diagnosis with the Breast Talk Ever. Can you explain to us a little bit about what that is, what inspired it, and the name of it even? I love the Breast Talk Ever, of course, and maybe where you're headed with that.
Okay, yeah. So the Breast Talk Ever actually was inspired by, and it's so crazy because, I just got back from South by Southwest and I actually got to spend some time with one of the people who inspired the Breast Talk Ever, and that's Guy Raz from the How I Built This podcast and brand and everything that it's evolved into being now. But, for me, and I'm not sure if your listeners know this yet, but I'll, get into it. I lost my mother to breast cancer when I was in graduate school back in 1993. And fast forward to like 2016, I lost my only sister to metastatic triple negative breast cancer. And, I'm raising my sister's only child because her husband unfortunately died of a sudden heart attack 4 years prior to her death. So my Nephew Son, as I call him, lost his father when he was 7, his mother when he was 11, and then his favorite aunt, his Lala, as he calls me, was actually diagnosed with breast cancer 6 months after his mother passed. I didn't share it with him until like that January of 2017. So as you can imagine, I buried my only sister, my only sibling, and just that whole process, because, I was raised by my mother, single mother, and we were more like sisters than we were mother and 2 daughters. Although she, when we would do stuff, it was like, okay, she's switching out on us now. She's being mom. And so when my mother passed, that was the most devastating, to this day, still the most devastating thing that ever happened in my life. But I still had my sister. And, we have always been super close. And losing her and just watching the disease that is metastatic cancer take a toll on her body, just as it had done my mother's. And she wasn't even 50, she was like 43. It was just like, I will never be able to put it into words. It's one thing to see, others, kind of go through stuff, but like when it's your loved one and you're the caregiver twice, because of a disease that still, for the life of me, I still can't understand how is it that we don't have a cure for cancer,
Agreed.
We sure did get some vaccine options real quick, didn't we? But that's that's for another episode, because that bugs the hell out of me. But so I bury her, and I honestly hadn't had a chance to grieve her death. And I still, day by day, am, still doing that and really grieving the LaTonya that was lost as a result of my diagnosis. So I get diagnosed, and then I'm a former athlete, and I just have that tenacity, like, okay, I will not lose. I have to be here for my nephew. Like, okay, what do I do? So I went into like marketing, planning, strategy, overdrive, like, okay, what do we do? So in the process of, exploring my options, and then of course landing on having a bilateral mastectomy with preparation for a recon, and I also had, of course, chemo, I started discovering survivors who had also created businesses. And, prior to that happening, probably, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years prior, I fell in love with podcasts as a result of this podcast called Serial, which is just like an amazing piece of art, that podcast. And then NPR came out with this podcast called How I Built This, and they profile, Guy Raz is the host, creator and host. He profiles amazing entrepreneurs who founded businesses, and you hear the story. You don't hear just the good stuff. You hear the good, the bad, the ugly, just all of it. And that's what I really lost myself in. I would listen to those episodes because I didn't want to burden my friends and my family with like what was really going on in my mind, because it was just like, wait a minute, my sister's really gone, like, and now I'm diagnosed. So in the process of looking for what could I put on my nails, what could I put on my hair, or something as simple as like looking for Black women who had had a mastectomy. When you Google that, I didn't see any Black skin. So in the process of discovering, all of these awesome survivors who had created these businesses, I'm like, wait a minute, could I create a business model around like this entrepreneurship and cancer advocacy thing? Are there enough of them that I would be able to sustain it, not just for a one season of a podcast? And of course, as I know you will agree, unfortunately, until we find a cure for cancer, there's always going to be amazing survivors and caregivers and allies that are creating awesome products and services as a result of cancer. So my answer was yes. And then I fast forwarded into like, okay, having conversations with my intellectual property attorney. And from there, I started the whole process, getting the logo design and all these things, writing the strategy. And then during that process, NPR announced the first of its kind fellowship where they were going to have a program where they selected their inaugural fellows for the How I Built This summit that takes place in San Francisco. And I was actually selected.
Amazing.
And it was just like, oh my God, is this real? So
yes, you were called to it.
Yes. So that really is what inspired the Breast Talk Ever. And, to be honest, I'm really good with naming. That's one of my God-given gifts. I always wanted to work in advertising and, wanted to be a creative director. And I actually can draw and paint a little bit. I know that had I, as one of my professors told me in college, had I been formally trained, I definitely would have been amazing. I guess it makes sense that I'm really drawn to like coming up with names and stuff like that. And a lot of my friends, when they are ready to name their businesses or whatever, I'm the first person they call. And so I had a couple other names because I typically like one word names, but because I understand the stats around breast cancer, I was like, no, I need to make sure that breast cancer is front and center at all times. Because if not, it's just like, oh, it's a brand. But, if you're forced to say the Breast Talk Ever, mind you, it's crazy because when I first set up the account, and even on occasion, I get these like crazy follows from obvious porn people.
Right.
They think my account is like some other type of account. And I'm like, no, this is not that type of brand over here.
But what we do here.
Yeah. So it's what I love about the name. It talks, it speaks silently without even having to say anything. Mm-hmm. And then, the icons of the logo, of course, were designed to look like quotation marks, but they also were designed to look like breasts as well, should you want them to look like breasts. Mm-hmm. So that's really, how the baby was born. And I'm so proud of, where we're going and all the things. The pandemic put a lot of things on hold, but nothing happens accidentally. And I'm actually grateful that the pandemic put some things on hold because it gave me a chance to step back and to reassess some potential collaborations that I wanted to do. They were like, no, that's not the right collab, but also to really just to slow down and to step back and to really to make sure that, my strategies was as tight as I had intended for it to be. And I'm super proud, and I can't wait to share a lot of the amazing things that are coming as a result of the strategy that I wrote back in 2018.
Yes. Oh, wow. I relate to so much of this. I think the pandemic did that for a lot of us, and hopefully for almost all of us. It's just it came with a lot of tragedy and a lot of loss and a lot of grief. But I think with that also came a lot of alignment, the way a cancer diagnosis does too. You lose almost everything. I mean, and you certainly have your mother, your sister, yourself going through it. And you get very clear about what's truly important in those moments for you personally and for you now also professionally, right? So it gave you a chance to get now very clear about your business model and the work that you're doing. And I know I can relate to that so much. That alignment, it almost feels like a freedom, right? Because then all of a sudden, all that stuff that wasn't important is just gone. And there's just no space for it. I don't have space for it. I'm sure you could agree, right? That exactly all those distractions that sometimes start to get to us, that start to pull up to us and get our attention, to have that kind of clarity of what is really important to you, what you truly value, makes it a lot easier to let some of that other stuff go. And I think that we get a lot of that from having already gone through a cancer diagnosis. And of course, certainly that is compounded for you having lost your sister and your mother.
Exactly.
That being said, do you mind? Are you okay if we talk about them a little bit?
Oh no, I'm fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Because I cannot imagine, and you said, I'm sure you can't imagine, and I can't. It is a horrible, cruel disease. It is one of the worst ways to lose somebody. And having witnessed that, and then you yourself getting diagnosed after that, it made me immediately wonder, like, how did you get through that? Because they had you, and now you're going through this. And as you said, you didn't even have a chance to grieve before you got diagnosed, because now you've got your NepSon, your beautiful NepSon, your sister's son with you. And how did you find support? How did you find a way to get through this the way that you did?
For one, I will definitely say my crazy faith. Were it not for God and my faith in knowing that, despite, my sister no longer being here on earth with me and everything that was happening, he was still right there. And then I've always, had amazing friends, and my friends, who many are like family, because my family is really small, but my friends, and especially my sorority sisters, I'm a member, I have to say, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. My college teammates, I ran track, all my life, my high school classmates from Jones High School, just my community of my tribe of amazing friends that I've, whether it's been through corporate jobs or high school, college, sorority, just really had my back, me and Jaden's back. And I will never be able to thank them enough, because they help, God used them to help fuel my fire to continue to live and to be this pillar of strength and resilience for my nephew. And, where does that come from? It comes from the fact that, I was raised by a strong woman. I am truly my mother's daughter. My mother raised me to be super strong, to be a great friend, loyal. I'm not if you want a friend who's going to tell you what you want to hear versus telling you an opinion that may not necessarily be the popular opinion, I'm not that person. And my grandmother always, I was raised like, you make sure you surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you, people who are going to make you better, but people who truly are genuinely going to have your back. And that's all I saw as a girl, and that grew into a teen and then a young woman, because my mother raised two amazing girls by herself, and then I ran track, and then I just saw all the commitment and the devotion that she had to making sure that we had the best life. So fast forward, when I look at like the number of people that just came through for me, it was truly a reflection of the life that I've lived and the way I've always poured into people, and they showed up for me, and I'm forever grateful for it, because I've always been the one. I value my friends so much that, I tell people all the time, at the end of the day, like, I don't want, I love orchids. I love beautiful flowers just in general, but I love orchids. And I'm the person that's like, if I love orchids, if you buy me a single orchid, that's going to make my day, then you sending me a bouquet of roses. Because that lets me know that like you've done your homework. And so that's the friend that I am. Like, if you're my friend, I'm going to go out of my way, whatever it is that I know that makes you happy and makes you who you are, that's who I am. And I truly believe in giving people their flowers, orchids or roses, when they're alive and breathing and can smell them. So for sure, my tribe of friends, but definitely my crazy faith. My sister, before she passed, one of the things that she always said was, "We got this." And of course, I adopted that as, one of my mantras as I went through this crazy cancer journey. But we got this. And, my crazy faith is why I'm still here, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. Both of those terms is crazy faith. And we got this. In fact, I must have felt that coming because I was just going to ask you. I said, do you have a mantra or some words of advice that you received along the way that still ring true for you today that helps get you through? And I can even imagine, going back to your track days, right? Words that you say to yourself when you're running, or words that you say to yourself now when, just to even help you get to take that extra step.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, being a track girl who always, of course, loved Nike, one of my other mantras is just do it. And I still live by that. Like, whatever it is, do not be afraid, just do it. You got to take that first step. As a track person, it's like, all the work you put in preparation for that race, whatever you do prior to that race, it will show up on the track. So just put in the hard work and just make it happen. Even if you don't win the first time, you can always go back and just keep working towards, crossing that line first. But at the end of the day, if you just do it, you're going to cross the line, because like in track, there's, depending on the track, there's 8 or 9 lanes, but everybody is eventually going to cross the line. It's just a matter of where you cross the line in.
Yes, we're all crossing the line. I love that so much. So tell me a little bit about your NepSon and how you communicate some of this to him. What's going on?
How I communicate before I got diagnosed? Well, after I got diagnosed?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he was, like I said, he was 11 at the time. And I got diagnosed in November of 2016. And because, his mom had, just buried his mom, I moved him from Orlando to Miami. And because it was November, I was like, how am I going to tell this kid this? And I was like, I'm not going to tell him until after Christmas, because I'm like, I at least want him to have a Christmas. I can't even say a good Christmas, because no Christmas is ever going to be good anymore without his mom. Or, he's been living without, at that point, without his dad for like 4 years or whatever. So I waited until the Monday. My surgery was on a Wednesday. So that Monday before my surgery is when I gave him the news. And he just wanted to know that I was going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And I told him yes. And, I said yes, but I'm sure you can understand, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know your listeners can't see me throwing up my hand, but in my heart of hearts, I'm like, okay, God, I have to be here. I'm going to be okay. So I told him that, and I felt it in my heart that I'm going to be here. I'm going to be okay. I have to be here. And he received it, but I just was always just so concerned. I'm like, this poor kid has to like now wait for me to go into a surgery, wondering not just am I going to come out of the surgery, but like, is this going to be the same fate as his mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sure it's very fresh on both of your hearts and minds every day, regardless of how much time passes, which in many ways can make it, I don't even want to use the term bittersweet, but it's the only word that's coming to me right now, that of course you know the value of each day, and you also know the fear of each day, and experiencing both, right? I mean, and there's both extreme ends. You want to value your life and honor your sister and your mother and just do it. And, we can do this and really live your life and honor them in that way. And then also that fear is very real and always playing in the background. And that reminder to really, really take care of yourself and what's important, and protect your energy and your body so that you can show up every single day for him.
So true. And that's the one thing that the past 6 months I've had to realize, and there have been some situations that I've had to realize, like, okay, protect your energy, and God sometimes removes things that you would have never imagined that he was going to remove. And for me, I guess the hardest part for me is knowing that he has to live with that fear, because for me, I feel like, I'm 53, but he told me about 2 weeks ago, and he's, throughout these 5 years, because I celebrated my 5-year cancer anniversary in January. And I have this habit of, like, I'll fall asleep on the sofa, like watching TV, like with laptop and up working late or whatever. Mm-hmm. He told me a few weeks back that sometimes I scare him because he'll come to make sure that I'm breathing. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine. And I think that's the piece, because when I as we talked a little bit before we formally started, one of the things that just pains me so much about cancer is that it leaves, unfortunately, this trail of broken hearts, but more importantly, kids. My nephew he was 7.
Mm-hmm.
He's 17 now. I mean, he was 11, I'm sorry, when my sister passed, but he has to deal with this daily. The fact that his mother is gone, and then the fear of, what if my cancer comes back?
Yeah, I don't think that there's probably enough said about the children that are left behind from this disease.
And I think about the kids that weren't even as old as my nephew, because I'm sure, like you follow and you've made friends with survivors, and unfortunately some of them are no longer here, or you hear the stories and it's just like, oh my God. And that's the one thing, like in my work, that I really work hard to make sure that cancer of any kind is not just a transaction. We're more than just October, the month of, or whatever the designated month that companies and people decide, like, oh, we're gonna rock this color. No. So that's the thing that is so hard, because I see, my sister was a teacher, and Jaden's in high school, and he often will talk about, like, sometimes it's hard just being in class, because his mom was very liked. She was beloved amongst her students, her colleagues. And I often think about those students, those kids, because she died before the school year was up. And I'll never forget Jaden and I went to talk to them, and they were just so adorable. They were like, oh my gosh, you and Miss Holmes were twins, because my sister and I look so much alike. And they made all these cards, and I'm just like, oh my God. So it's just like, there's just 1 degree of separation between someone who's been impacted by cancer, whether you sit in the chemo chair or it's a loved one, a colleague. And it actually blows my mind that the oncology industry is where it is. It's so behind.
Yeah.
And that's why I created the business model that I created, because I'm like, oh, no. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this space that just, I'll just sigh.
Yeah, I agree. I do a lot of sighing. I was going to ask you what you do in those moments of despair to bring yourself back to center. And for me, it involves a lot of sighing. Absolutely. I remember through my journey, and, my mom went through breast cancer twice. And I was shocked when I got diagnosed 30 years later that my treatment options were the exact same treatment options that she had. There was no difference in all that time. And I cannot even begin to tell you what my reaction was when that was offered to me, the exact same prescription my mom got. And
oh my gosh. And in fact, I found something, I don't know what I did with it, but I was going to share it with you, but it just blew my mind, because my mother passed in 1993. And what I found was, because my mother had a lumpectomy initially. And so she had a bra, and, she had this prosthesis that she would insert in the thing. And it's so funny because, my sister and I were in graduate school, and we had to go through all the things, my mother's clothes and all these things. And we kept this, and I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say the wrong brand, but when I looked at the prosthesis, I'm like, this is crazy. It's essentially a prosthesis for a white woman. It's pink. And as I looked at it, I was just like, wow. And there hasn't really been a whole lot of change.
I can attest to that.
And I'm just like, wow. So it's just
disheartening.
Yeah.
I did prosthesis fittings for quite some time, actually, after my diagnosis, helping women. And I noticed that right away. I said, why are these all the same color? This is just not, what are we doing here?
Yeah, nude.
Well, nude, right. Why are we even calling it nude? Nude is relative.
Yeah, there are different shades but when I saw that, I just looked at that and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. And the bras themselves, there was 2 colors. There was white or beige. That was it. White or beige. And then you had a pink. and a pink prosthesis.
Yeah. So that's why for me, like when I decided that I was going to do this, I'm very, everything I do is very intentional. I really want to work with people and companies who really from the jump really wanted to include everyone. And wanting to include everyone shouldn't have started after George Floyd got killed.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
And for me, I've seen a lot of things that have been performative that it's just been disheartening, because it's like, okay, when you created this brand, if you really intended to include everyone, it would have been included from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, because it's not a good look if you haven't, and the thing is, especially with the Black, you're performing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it just blows my mind. It's like, you see the same, I already know, like if I go to my feed, it's like, you don't see the same survivors, because the ones who are going to challenge you stay away from them because they're challenging you. It makes you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's why I said, when I look at like what the pandemic did for me, because I came into this space like, oh, so excited, like, yeah, I'm here. We're going to change the world. And I still feel like God is using me to change the world. But
absolutely, having just known you for the short time that I have, your energy it's just there. It's just happening.
Some of the survivor advocates that I thought I would be changing the world with, it's not happening with them. And it's nothing personal against them. It's just we don't have the same values system, because I can't. My community I cannot. I'm my mother's child. I represent my community. I represent everyone, and I will not be a part of anything that's performative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you've got, again, that's one of those ways to protect your energy and your resources and do the best work that's possible for you, the most meaningful work. And you're not there to make somebody else look better or feel better. You're there to do the work.
I'm here to do the work, and I'm here to save as many lives as possible, And that's the part. It's like, gosh, we're, when you look at like the statistics, like Black women are diagnosed at a lower rate, but unfortunately we're dying at a higher rate.
Much higher rate.
So the inequities and just all these things that exist, you've got to go like deep into the communities, the community that I come from, It
is so much more than we can even imagine. It's one of the things that I discovered through my own process, just how difficult it was getting through the system. And I'm somebody who has a ton of support, a mother who's been through this twice. I thought I was well-educated, informed, and supported and all these things, and still found it super challenging and misinformed and undersupported and all these things. And that woke me up in a big way. And I thought, if somebody with all the resources that I have can feel this way, what must other people who are truly suffering, unsupported, under anything going through? What hope do they have? What chance do they stand if there's so many gaps that you can fall through the cracks in the system?
Yeah.
And who's there to, show you the way? Because this is not an easy path to walk
at all. And, there's just so many aspects of this cancer stuff that just blows my mind. Like, I had a follow-up with my oncologist, not the last appointment, but the appointment before this one. And it's like, I can't remember exactly what the amount was, but let's just say it was $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted me to pay $1,500 right there. And I have insurance.
That's insane. I know nobody can see my face right now, but
I literally could not see her until I've like worked out a payment plan. And I'm like, are you kidding? So like you said, like for me, I'm an educated woman who like obviously knows how to navigate the system and speak up. And it's just like, and it's
exhausting. The amount of speaking up that you have to do is exhausting.
And so that's why I'm like wanting to make sure that I'm looking out for underinsured and underserved women. And, like, of course, I lost both my mother and my sister to metastatic breast cancer, which let's be clear, at the time, like my mother, and I have survivors. I know women who have metastatic breast cancer, but they, of course, still refer to themselves as survivors. I didn't know, like, I hadn't heard the word metastatic, so I, of course, now use it as a means to educate people so they understand like what that means. But I want us to find a cure. And I've had several conversations with like researchers, like Yale labs, Harvard labs, because, I had this vision of like, okay, I'm going to create this model and it's going to be like Tom's. You buy this, X% of dollars is going to go towards research. And you know what every researcher I've talked to told me? They said you would be more well suited to help survivors in a tactical way. Help them with groceries, because the amount of money it takes to move the research needle. And so, of course, I was having these conversations when we were in the pandemic, and I said, you know what, until I can really lobby and rally all of my corporate relationships to really like put a big dent, that makes sense, because I know people that, they don't have rides to their appointments. Yeah. They need groceries. They need their light bills paid.
Yeah.
And so that's why I had to step back and say, whoa.
Yeah.
I had to look at what I was listening to and remember who I was, whose daughter I was, where I grew up. I live in Miami. I travel across the country and I go into the hearts of communities. I'm a Black woman. I'm not afraid to go into the inner cities. And that's when I realized, like, this is how I've got to structure my business model. And I also have another, I can't remember if I put it in the bio, but Coming to Stage 4 is my other project that is focused on stage 4 cancers in general, that will also raise funds to help anyone going through cancer with the things that like we just discussed. So for me, that's where I'm so grateful for my marketing background, because it informs everything that I do. I'm sure you can relate. Being a one-woman show, trying to like be the social media person and this and that. And I've had to prioritize. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, at some point I'm going to get the social media manager, but the number one priority for me is to educate and to save as many lives as possible.
Yeah, that education piece is first.
If that means my Instagram feed suffers, then that's fine, because the thing that I get so excited about is when I see, I don't buy followers, more power to you if that's what you do. But just in case you do know that brands know the difference. And they have people that can tell when the stuff is bought. But I take pride in every follow that I get, because I would say 95% of the people following my accounts, they're entrepreneurs, which is exactly what I intended.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really powerful when you consider what's possible when you just really do go in and serve the community. The research is important, of course, but the people that are living, right now, day to day. And I always say that the disparity begins before your first mammogram appointment, and just getting to that appointment, paying the copay, getting the babysitter, getting time off work, all those things that are already, just challenging you to even get there. And then how many appointments you have. And, it's like, can we streamline this so that like once you get a woman in the door, she doesn't have to make 4 more appointments, come back, take 4 other days off work, get 4 more babysitters, get 4 more copays paid. Like, how can we even just make that process more simple so that it's just an easeful process first, once we get you in the door even.
Right. Oh my God, it's so much. And so that's why I'm just like, oh my God, can we just, we definitely, I don't want to misrepresent what my thoughts about research. I definitely think that's important. But, in my mind, I'm like, oh my God. They're like, do you know $100,000? That's not going to do anything. Not that it's not going to, yes, everything helps, but it's like, that's not going to move the needle.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we need the needle to move. We need that needle moved. We've got to redirect our priorities as a whole society. That's like, that was the power of what came out of, like COVID and everything, right? It showed you the power of collective intention, and none of us can do this alone. If all of us collectively put our attention towards this, we could move that needle.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's my priority number one. Like, hey, because my thing is like, hey, researchers, how can I help you? Tell me what I need to do. And that was the feedback that I've got, like, from 3 different organizations that said. And then I talked to respected organizations, and they said, LaTonya, this is what you need to do. Like, the number of requests that we get that we have to turn down because there's not enough money, just
right.
it's just so hard. I was treated here in Miami, had an amazing oncology team, but I know that everybody doesn't have that, doesn't get afforded that luxury,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they don't. And
And
they
that's
don't.
that's a problem. I have a problem with that. Like, that should not be the case.
Right. Exactly. You should have choice. You should be able to get a second opinion. You should feel like you're getting the
Exactly.
best care. And it shouldn't matter what state or city or town you live in, you should have access to great care.
Yeah, like I'd never heard of genomics, but because the team that I had, like, thank God I had the oncology team that I had, because I was initially diagnosed with HER2 positive, and I was actually excited. I was like, definitely didn't want cancer, but like I knew that triple negative was not the one to have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was ecstatic that it wasn't triple negative. And then my oncologist, she just found it odd that I wasn't triple negative, and both my mother and my sister were. Well, they knew that my mother and sister were because I knew. I put it on all my document. I told them, and that's another reason why I'm working really hard to do these things that I'm getting ready to launch that will be community driven,
Mm-hmm.
to educate families, whether it's cancer, diabetes, whatever the case is, know your family health history.
Yeah.
Because had I not known, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
That is mind blowing to me that you were misdiagnosed, even with your history.
And like my breast surgeon, my whole team, they all like were really good friends. They worked together. And the margins, I'm probably not explaining it right, but we're really close. And my breast surgeon, who was an amazing, oh my God. After we're done, I have to show you my my no scars, my nipple sparing surgery. But my breast surgeon died from a rare form of cancer.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yes, Dr. Manning passed. Just crazy. And when I remember when he shared the results of my type of cancer, it was close, but he just felt like, okay, this is, HER2 positive. And so when my oncologist, this friend and colleague, saw it, it raised a flag for her. And, of course they were in conversation. And that's when Dr. Garrido said to me, there's a company, Agendia, a genomics test that has a test, and I'd like to run it. And she said, they work with patients. I'm not sure if your insurance will cover it. If your insurance doesn't, they will work out something with you. She ran the tests. And at that point, had done, I want to say 1 or maybe 2 rounds of my chemo. She got the results back, and the results came back that I was actually triple negative. And she switched me immediately, put me
You
on
were already 2 treatments in.
It was 1 or 2. I want to say.
Oh my gosh.
My chemo brain fails me at times. Yeah.
Either way, you had already begun treatment, and
yeah. And
wow.
So I always think about like, what about the patients who don't have a Dr. Garrido, who they're just, these doctors, they have so many patients. Now
that train, once you're on it, it feels almost unstoppable. Like you go in the system, and here's what you're going to do. Here's your packet. Don't stop. Just, keep showing up to all these appointments. And unless you pause and ask some questions.
Yeah. So because she was super thorough and just, diligent, I was actually confirmed that, no, you are triple negative.
Mm.
Can you imagine? I get treated for HER2 positive, and with triple negative being so aggressive, I wouldn't be here.
That's horrifying. It gives me, I'm nauseous right now thinking about it. That's horrifying. Like that actually, it happens, and I know it happens. We both hear those stories too often. It's just such a powerful reminder to pause and ask some questions, and really, you've got to always be advocating for yourself. I hate to say it, but it does get exhausting. It's another piece of it, but nobody knows your story better than you, and have a partner in crime in this whole thing to help keep track of your story, because it's exhausting and it's tiring. But I think you've got to be in your corner, and you've got to track the information, track the research, and ask questions if something's not feeling right.
Yeah, and that's why one of the reasons I want to make talking about health, and especially cancer, especially in the Black community, normal. Because it's not really something, it's typically, not discussed, or it's discussed privately, even in the breast, survivorship space. I'm always reminding people, like, don't get it twisted. Like, like we all are on, those of us that are like in this advocacy space and doing, the amazing work that everyone is doing, but it's not even like putting a dent in like the number of women that are impacted by cancer. So for me, that's why I want to make sure that I'm having the conversations with everyone across industry so that they understand the importance of knowing your family history, because unfortunately, if you don't, the doctors only know what you tell them,
That's why conversations like this are so powerful. Like you said, for us to be going cross industry, collaborating with each other, sharing our stories, getting them out there, because a lot of people, a lot of women are just either uncomfortable talking about it, or even if they are comfortable and looking for that conversation, it's hard to find people willing to have it with them. So hopefully people listening to this can find something that they connect with. It gives them permission to go then reach out to somebody else and start talking about it. I would definitely encourage them to do that. And it was part of the reason why I even started the support group that I have, because I needed to talk to people. I sort of built it almost out of my own need first. And I thought, I can't be the only one that feels this way. But then we've got to, beyond finding our voices within our space, we've got to, like you said, come out and share it with other people and get that collective wisdom elevated.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
What would be your advice for somebody being newly diagnosed right now, particularly a young Black woman?
The first thing I would say is don't be afraid to share the fact that you've been diagnosed with those closest to you in your community. I know firsthand that, especially in the Black community, it typically stays within the family. And by doing that, you might limit yourself from like resources that could help you financially, emotionally, but really just to navigate the system. Because, now there's so many, even 5 years later after I was diagnosed, there's so many amazing things that have happened in the space that we didn't have it 5 years ago, And, my mother was diagnosed in 1993, my sister like in 2014. And I just think that having someone that being able to talk to people along that patient journey from a caregiver perspective, because that's the other stakeholder in my mind that sometimes gets overlooked, because caregivers have to shoulder so much. Oh my gosh, and
well, yeah, I mean, you've been on both sides.
Yeah. So I definitely would say, share it, obviously whatever your comfort level is, but lean in on finding a survivor support group that can really help you navigate the journey, help you and your family navigate the journey, because it'll definitely come in handy. There's definitely some great organizations that I am friends with the founders that I think they are doing amazing work. It just lessens the load. Nothing can ever take away everything that comes with getting a cancer diagnosis emotionally, but it's always great to have genuine support from a community that gets it,
Yeah.
So that's the one thing for sure that I would say is discuss it for many reasons. As we just were talking about, like, you never know who else in your family may have had it.
Right.
It's just like I was just, we discussed earlier, I got back from South by, like, 1 in 3 persons that I talk to have been impacted by cancer.
Oh, yeah. Once you start talking about it, you realize the impact that it's having on people, and we are not alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody newly diagnosed, like, you are not alone. You will feel like you're alone. You are on this path alone, but you are not alone.
And that's the one thing that I would say, I don't take it lightly. Like, a lot of times you hear a lot of stuff, we are not alone, you are not alone. But the reality is, you can be in a room full of survivors, you still going to feel alone.
Yeah.
I'm a strong, and I don't know if this was the same for you. Like, you could tell me that all day. I felt so alone and devastated. I lost my sister, but more importantly, it's like, oh my God, like, I'm so used to being in control and being able to navigate stuff, but no, this is a incurable disease. So that's why, to that person who's newly diagnosed, I would definitely say, like, finding your tribe of people who will be able to support you in every sense of the word, because there are definitely cultural differences in the way you deal with cancer. That's the other thing that I had to realize. And I realize it every day when I like scroll my feed and I just see stuff and I keep scrolling and I'm like, wow, okay. Clearly have never been in an inner city to understand. So
what's really happening and what you're facing. Yeah.
The disparities are just different. They're just totally, totally different. But I would also say, like, you can find me on all of the socials. I will do what I can to support you. I have a great community of friends and we rally to help everyone. But that for sure is what I would definitely say. Start with your loved ones. Let them know. And let them know. Don't be afraid to tell them what you don't want, because that's sometimes like people don't mean any harm, but sometimes people don't know what to say.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's okay to let them know. It's okay to let them know.
Yeah, let them know.
Oh, I love that. Before we end this conversation, because I feel like we have so much we could dive into there. There's so many layers to this and we're barely scratching the surface on so many of them. Is there anything present on your mind that you want to leave our listeners with, or something else you felt you wanted to share today?
Like, which way do I go? Because I have so much going on.
I know, that's what I feel like. It's like we scratched the surface of so many things.
I'm super excited about two things. One, for sure, of course, that speaks to like the underserved communities is, my mobile mammogram tour is back live and I'm going into communities all over the country. It's a festival of sorts that is going to be doing screenings and educating. There's going to be music and food and, all in the name of bringing communities together to talk about health, but also to have a good time and to love on one another. And then the other thing is I am launching a jewelry collection, Breast Talk Ever collection, which of course will help fund mammograms and also do some of those other tactical things that we discussed. I'm super excited about that. I was in Austin. So many people were like, oh my God, the jewelry is beautiful. They had no idea, like, because I deliberately don't tell people. I just want
to.
And they're like, oh my God, where can I order? So I'm super excited about that.
Love it.
Especially excited about the mammogram tour and the concerts that are going to be coming as a result of now that we can be out and interacting in person. And I have some other stuff, some other things that are in the works. It's just, being a one-woman person. It's one-woman show, I should say.
Yep.
I have to prioritize and do things. That'll change a little bit now because we're opening back up. But I'm so excited that I have an opportunity to sit with you. And I just think what you're doing is amazing and continue doing it. And if I can ever support you or any of your listeners, definitely feel free to reach out and to let me know.
Absolutely. Tell our listeners how and where they can find you.
So the Breast Talk Ever social platforms, or you can find me on Instagram at the Breast Talk Ever. Twitter is Breast Talk Ever. And our web space is thebreasttalkever.com. And then my personal page is Coach LaTonya. That's CoachLatonya. I am not a business coach. That coach stands for Coach LaTonya, that coach track and football.
I love it. Which a lot still does apply in business and fighting cancer.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, they think that I'm like, that's not my thing. I do have some exciting stuff that's coming for founders or what have you, but that's the personal page. So I'm super excited and I look forward to, I love working with founders and anyone that just has that entrepreneurial spirit. So anyone that I can work with, we can collaborate as long as we have the same value systems in place and we have the same goal of including and speaking to everyone.
Yes.
I'm all for it.
Love that. Love that. LaTonya, thank you so much for being here. I can't even tell you what a wealth of wisdom and insight you are, and just a true heart and love and passion for what you're doing. And for really taking time to show up for us and for your community. And so grateful for you being so willing to do this work and walk this path with you is a privilege. And so I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cannot wait to share this.
Yay.
Voices of Hope is dedicated to the people facing breast cancer now or in the past or in the future. This series is here for the people who are literally fighting for their lives in this moment, and for those who are no longer here to share their voice and their stories. We think of them every single day. Voices of Hope is inspired by my mother, who shared her story with me. And if it was not for her being willing to share her story with me, I would not be here today, not in the capacity that I am at the very least. It is motivated by my daughters, my 3 beautiful daughters. And I hope one day that they never have to face this disease. In this series, you will hear from women who are sharing this story for the very first time. You will hear from women who have made it their life's mission to share their story in the hopes of reaching just one more person who might benefit from it. You will hear from women who have transformed their lives through unimaginable loss, through unimaginable circumstances, and how they found hope and got through and began to live their life in a new way. I think that is something we can all benefit from right now. These are real stories of real survivors. The intention for this series is to inspire, educate, support, and inform you so that you feel more empowered in your life as you move forward and support those that you know who might also be facing this disease. Please take a moment to visit our show notes to learn more about these women, to learn more about the breast cancer nonprofit organization For the Love of Cups, and to download our mammogram guide. 4 important questions you need to understand and ask at your mammogram appointment so that you are better informed and empowered to advocate for your best care, to receive a thorough screening exam so that you can get the peace of mind that you deserve. We are so grateful to have you here. I really hope you enjoy these stories as much as I have enjoyed recording them and tuning in and really getting to have these conversations with these incredibly powerful and inspiring women. I'm so happy to have you here with me. It's an honor to have you tuning in each week. I want you to know that no matter where you're at and no matter what transition you're facing, you are supported and loved. You are whole and you are more than capable as you are in this moment. You always have been. If you're ready to lean into a life of purpose, clarity, and joy through sisterhood, ritual, and intention, join us in the Connected Circle. Consider us your soul squad of women navigating all the transitions of life together. To join now, head over to my website, lisamalia.co, and join the Connected Circle at the very top of the page. I'll see you there. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please share, subscribe, rate, and write a review. This helps the goddess of the algorithm guide other incredible people to find this show and supports the work we do here. It really does make a difference, and I would be so, so grateful. With all my love, have a beautiful day.